and the only job I could get was at a personal injury law firm. And so I literally had a police scanner, and if you were injured in an accident, I would go there and convince you to see a chiropractor. And I did that for 3 years and hated it so bad. And then answered answered an ad in the newspaper. They were doing one-line parts. They were looking for day player parts in Road Trip. And so I drove down to Atlanta and auditioned in a high school gym with 20 other dudes for a one-line part. And the line was $250. And Todd Phillips, he went on to direct Hangover movies and Joker, was there and he pointed to each of us, and we all said $250. And then afterward, the casting director came up and she was like, so the director would like to talk to you. And he's like, so there's a part that we're having a problem casting, and we would like you to come back tomorrow to read for it. And that he handed me a script. And I'd never read a script before, and they're hard to read if you don't know how to read them. And so I drove back to Nashville. I think Nashville's 3.5 hours away from Atlanta. And get there and read, and I'm driving down the next day, and I'm shitting myself. I'm so nervous. And my air conditioning, it's late July, early August, and my air conditioning stopped working. I had a 92 Toyota Tercel that had been practically destroyed by me because I'm a terrible driver. And so the air conditioning cut out on it. So I get there, red-faced, and I go in there, and I panic, and I'm terrible. I bombed. And then I cried all the way back to Nashville because I thought that was my shot. And about 8 weeks later, I'm at my law desk, and Ivan Reitman calls me, and he produced Road Trip. And he's like, we want you to fly to California. So I pawned the title to my car and scraped up $900 and drove out, booked a room on Priceline at a hotel that's right by the airport for $35 a night. I got a budget rental car for $35 a day. And I went and met with them, and he cast me on the spot. It changed my life. 8 months later, I was on the Tonight Show.
So, before this, all of this, you were just a big kid going to law school, doing the deal, and on a whim, hey, I'm going to go read this line, and now...
Yeah, I was doing community theater plays at night. I literally was doing my law job from 9 to 5, and then I went to rehearsal and did plays on the weekend. So it's something I've always done. And if I couldn't do it professionally, I probably would still be doing it in my community because I like pretending and I like telling stories. Especially Southerners. Southerners, we have a long tradition of storytelling. And it's something that I think the South is sort of a place that sort of still has its own. Texas is Texas. This is South, but it's still Texas. But the South still has its own regional identity, for better or for worse. But it's still, we still all self-identify as Southerners. And there's just a tradition of storytelling, sitting on your front porch, telling things like that. And that's what film does, but on a global scale.
Well, there's home and there's where you live.
Yeah.
And your home is those roots. And I feel like, for me, it's being from South Florida. No matter how long I've lived in Texas, I will always be a South Florida.
I'm a Tennessee boy, and I always will be, even though California bought it.
But as we said, the two main things are all the companies that are moving here, and people are going, $250,000 for a 3-bedroom house? I have that on me.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
The thing is, houses are going from $300,000 what we're asking, so people are cashing out their equity for houses in Los Angeles. And in my old neighborhood in East Nashville, there are signs that say go back to California in people's yards because people are being pushed out, right? Here's what happened. So I went for a Supernatural convention in December, and I hadn't been home into Nashville before the pandemic, so it's been 3 years. So I go home, and I was planning to go to the convention, go to see my buddy Phil in Huntsville, and then drive up to see my parents for a few days in Manchester. And they put us at a hotel called The Bobby. The Bobby is clearly made by somebody who's only seen, there's ideas of Nashville, right? There's honky tonk is on the wall. It's a, you know what I mean? It's a really cheesy sort of upscale version of what Nashville, or what people who aren't from Nashville think the South is. And I checked in, and the lady that checked me in was from somewhere in wine country, Sonoma Valley, Northern California, and she was like, I really love it here, it's so great, it's so quaint. And I'm like, first of all, don't call it quaint, we're gonna hurt you if you do that. Because if you move somewhere, you're act like we discovered it, right? We've been here the whole time. And so this is what I said, I was like, do you have ice machines here? And she was like, Bobby, the hotel's called the Bobby. She's like, Bobby doesn't like the sound of ice makers on the floor. And I was like, is Bobby a real person, or are you referring to the hotel in the third person? She was like, Bobby is not a real person. And I'm like, y'all gotta stop doing that. You're making me not want to come home. Yeah. So now I think I moved into to Memphis because it's still the South. In Nashville, they tore down Annabella Mansion that was an apartment block and put up a Walgreens. They'll tear down anything, they'll sell anything. They want to be Los Angeles so bad. And I like LA, but LA's a great LA, Nashville's a terrible one.
LA just needs to be LA, like Nashville will be Nashville.
Nashville used to be great. And I miss I miss hearing a Southern accent, and I just don't hear one when I'm there.
But that's even getting tougher even in some parts of the South anymore, because we're all mutts at this point. We're all from somewhere else, and
I can't help it. I cannot not yell in a Southern accent. Like every time I have to yell on camera, I have to go back and re-record the dialogue. Every time. I always yell in a Southern accent no matter what I'm doing.
I slip into that.
I hate it!
When I get really tired, I slip into that.
Yeah.
You've also got a little bit of music still in your career.
Mm-hmm.
Very Naked Ladies video, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, I think, the Eagles, and I did a Britney Spears music video. And
Boys, right?
Yeah, and I did one for, I've done several.
Was Very Naked Ladies Pinch Me, which one that one?
No, I was Simple Plan.
Simple Plan, there we go.
Yeah.
How does that differ? Because you've done television, you've done film, working on a video set, it's a lot quicker, of course.
Yeah.
Is there any difference in that process for you?
So this was at the time when MTV ran videos. And videos had massive budgets, and they were a big deal for the singer and for the single, right? So everybody saw them. And they're free, they're on television, and they play in a loop, and because they're so short, people will see that and you become part of like the collective consciousness, I think, a lot faster. They make you famous. There's an old saying that movies make you famous, TV makes you rich, music videos make you famous. Back in my day they did. It's so sad I can say back in my day. Kids are now saying that their mothers love me.
Those are those moments that you just like, I just look in the mirror and I see all the gray and it just reminds me.
I'm going to have surgery until my ears meet in the back. I refuse to go. I'm not going to go.
So let's talk a little bit, go back a little bit, because again, we talked at the top of our time together that I run a charity that works with cancer research.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You are a survivor.
I had Hodgkin's disease when I was 14, which is cancer of the lymphatic system. So I had that 14 to 16. So I did 2 full cycles of chemo, full cycle of radiation, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, so it's something, and St. Jude, insurance caps. People don't realize this, your health insurance can cap on you. And my dad's health insurance capped, and so St. Jude gave me a lot of care. St. Jude doesn't charge anyone. And so 10% of my salary every year goes to St. Jude, and will until the day I die. Hopefully when I'm 97, I'm still looking for a
There's a certain level of toughness that comes with that.
Yeah, I'm tough as hell.
For what you've been through, my friend, absolutely. But is there parts of that were seeds of you that were planted that came later to help you with the toughness? Because the entertainment business is not easy.
Dude, people are so mean. Like, I came up in a time when message boards were invented. And when TMZ was brand new. When cameras first got when phones first got cameras on them. So it was a completely different world. So my generation of actor, it was before like Netflix and all these, there weren't a lot of platforms for media. So there were like 5 networks, 3 cable channels, and a few studios. And so there weren't a lot of actors. So it was almost like your graduating class of actor. In mine, it was like Paul Walker and Jessica Alba and Scarlett Johansson, that whole crew were in my group. Devin Sawa, and just a bunch of kids that we all knew each other. And if you were up for a job and your buddy got it, it was like good for you because you were getting a job right after that. There weren't a lot of us. And Hollywood's not creative in casting. I mean, now the viewership is so fractured that my buddies will be on shows for 5 years and I'm like, I've never heard that. You know what I mean? I'm like, is it brand new? I'm like, no, it's our 5th season. There's just so much content.
Well, and it's rapid fire all the time.
It's also exhausting and like, you can't keep ahead of it. Also, your whole life will be watching television. And a lot of my life is watching television. I can't lie, I do love watching TV. But we all knew each other. And so, but because I don't look like anybody in Hollywood, people were mean. The New York Times, for my road trip premiere, or my road trip review said, human bookmark DJ Qualls shines. The Memphis commercial appeal said I was like an Auschwitz survivor. I got this rapid fire. The thing that's so interesting is that how David LaChapelle put me in a Prada ad when I was 19 years old. I was walking down the street in London, and he was like, I like your face. And so I modeled during Heroin Chic for 3 years in Paris, and then had to go back to, and then that's what the world thinks of you. But the thing is, I was in on that joke, because those characters are supposed to think look like that. And they do look like me, but they look like that version of me. But the other thing I realized, and that your perception of me has nothing to do with me. When people come up to me all the time and say this to me, I know you, and just for my mental health, I have to say this, you don't know me, but you recognize me, and that makes me feel good, because it means that my work has gotten out there, but you don't know me. And that's important, because I got successful so quick, and because nobody looks like me, I did 12 movies in like 3.5 years, which is a lot of movies. And when I took a break, I didn't know anyone anymore. LA is so transient. I moved there and started working immediately, and then my friends from my past life couldn't relate to me anymore. They would act weird around me, and so it's really lonely. And I got pretty depressed actually. But the good things in the quiet, I started reaching out to my fellow actors and realized that this has nothing to do with me. Your negative opinion of anything. First of all, I've watched 2 things I've done. I can't watch them. And
is that because they're different versions of you?
Well, it's just because who wants to hear their voice like on an answering machine getting surround sound? Like, it's horrible. Nobody likes to see themselves. And most of us don't watch our own work. When I have to watch things, I'll watch it with my glasses off so I get an idea of it. When I have to re-record dialogue, I always do it by sound, not by sight. And the actors, these people, so it's like watching people pretend. It's like, oh, I know that face. One of my buddies got nominated for an Oscar, and I'm not going to mention who it was, but I had a housewarming party, and he took mushrooms, and I found him naked and crying in my upstairs bathroom. And people are like, have you seen Blank's movie? I'm like, I saw him naked and crying in my bathroom. I can never watch anything he ever does again.
That's a high bar.
Yeah. But to go back to your question, the thing that I realize is that people's perception of you is one thing, and also there's a television especially, you're in these people's houses and people have a relationship to you that you're not there for. And that's what I think is interesting, and also there's kind of the honor in it, because your work can find people wherever they happen to be in their path. Like hard day at work, or on somebody's first date. That's so awesome. So like whenever I do these things, there's an element of commerce involved, but I don't take breaks. I take maybe 20 minutes to cram some food down my throat, but I'm here for people to be able to tell me these things. I'm here for people to say, hey.
What's the one thing when you look at your career at this point, because you said a long way to go, what's the one thing you look at and you go, that's the thing I'm most proud of? Because my personal favorite role of yours is Legit.
That's the best thing I've ever done. Legit was hands down the best thing I've ever done. It was a show that was on the air for 2 years. Jim Jeffries, this comedian who's famous for saying, see you next Tuesday. Actually, when they offered this to me, they sent me a bunch of his YouTube clips, and in the pilot, they said that the actor that played my character had to be naked because of the way they were filming it. They weren't going to show it, but I had to be naked, and I was like, this guy's an asshole, I'm not going to be naked in front of him, he's evil. And it took me to see a podcast that he was filming. He had a homeless guy living on his couch that he just met, that was doing his merchandising. He just met this guy, and I was like, he's a good guy. And he bought a house like 3 streets from me, recently. It's also the best and worst thing that ever happened to me, because he knows my door codes and all that stuff. But it's about a guy with advanced stage muscular dystrophy who's living out the final years of his life, but it's funny. And it makes fun of everybody. And so many people with muscular dystrophy were reaching out to me.
Because it was a point of view in my house.
Yeah, I loved it. And the reason why we were canceled is because John Landgraf, the president of FX, was college roommates with our co-creator, and there was a woman that they both had that were competing for the affections of, and John Landgraf, the president of FX, got her. I think he married her. And every time Peter O'Fallon, who was our co-creator, wanted something, he would bring that up. And John got so hard of better time slot, more money. John got tired of hearing it, and he showed Peter his boss, and he canceled us. And 3 years later, I had a party, and he admitted it was a giant mistake. And they were the best reviews of my career. The New York Times, I think it was the Boston Globe wrote an article saying that I wouldn't be nominated for an Emmy, but I should. Just a love letter to the character.
That shit was
And
great.
I cried for 2 days when it was canceled. Like it hurt so bad. I was like, am I tough enough for this? It hurt so bad that I took Z Nation because it was offered to me the day that Legit was canceled without reading it.
Oh wow.
I was like, I'm going to be at home beating myself up about this for however long it takes for this to wear off. And so like the next day I was on a plane going to Spokane, Washington. And I'm glad I did it. It was a really pitchy, fun thing. And the cool thing was I got to do something so lowbrow and so low end. At the same time I did Man in the High Castle, which at the time was the second highest cost per episode show behind Game of Thrones. And I think maybe still is. I mean, these are like $15 million episodes. And Ridley Scott is directing. Like, it was crazy. But to do something that was put together with like cardboard and tape, and then to be able to do something with glossy, beautiful sets and lots of CGI at the same time was so fun. I loved it.
All right, let's open it up to you guys. What kind of questions you have for the amazing DJ Qualls? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to bridge right off. You said the question I had walking in here was the process of creating something that looks so historically accurate, like the Man in the High Castle. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's like as an actor, be on that set and be living in this sort of fictional historical reality?
The cool thing, the amazing thing, so Man in the High Castle is a book that Philip K. Dick wrote, and it's sort of, I think it's his masterpiece. It's only like 200 pages long, but it's hard to read. It's about what would have happened if we lost the Second World War. And in our version of history, it's alternative history. In our version of history, Oppenheimer was assassinated, who created the H-bomb. Germany and Japan, Germany bombed New York and Japan bombed LA on the same day. We were invaded, the war lasted for 7 years longer, and we surrendered. So the United States was cut in half. The Japanese got the west part, and the Germans, the Nazis, got the east coast. So we're living in this world. And the reason why it was never produced is because it was so expensive, because everything had to be made. This is a world where rock and roll never happened. The Beatles never happened. Everything had to be made. The money had to be made. The cars had to be made. None of those cars were real brand cars. Everything had to be manufactured, thinking what would have happened if we had not evolved as a society. And it was really interesting. I will say this though, the best at modern invention are the low-waisted pants. High-waisted pants for men, I don't know. The undergarments must have had to be 4 inches thick because they saw you. Like your pants are literally up to here. And you get sawed all day long, if you know what I mean. It's not the best. Historical pants are terrible. It's sad that that's the thing that I take away from the most of it. I'll never forget those damn pants. But another thing, we had gay characters in the show. I mean, you could be killed for that. There's a scene where a guy's driving through Indiana, I think, and he thinks it's snowing, and it's Tuesdays when they burn, I think, the blacks and the cripples is what they said. It's the day that they killed black people, and gay people were annihilated. Everybody who wasn't straight and white was annihilated. And not to get political, but a lot of people were like, oh, this is a comment on what's happening currently in this country, and it wasn't. It's a book that was written in 1962. So we dealt with that a lot in the press. People trying to make modern parallels, and we were not. We were not making political statements in it. I mean, I have my own politics, as you can probably imagine, which I will not go into. But it was also the first time I played a gay character, which was really, really cool. And the fear of that, it mirrored kind of what my experience was growing up in the South. I think sort of the fear of being harmed.
Okay, so who else has a question I'd like to ask? Here we go, over here.
What was it like with Supernatural?
So when I got offered Supernatural, I turned it down. It was a 7-year-old show on the CW, and not to be a dick, but come on. And also, they got me. I can't remember what I was filming, but whatever it was, maybe it was all about Steve, the movie with Sandra Bullock, but whatever it was really taxing. I was tired. And I think it was that because we shot a lot of nights, and they asked me to do it maybe a week after my sleep schedule hadn't got. See, a lot of things about being entertainment are practical life things. If you do a movie that's all nights, it takes about 2 weeks to turn your schedule around, and they wanted me to travel, I think, the following week. And I was waking up at you know, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and going to bed. You know what I mean? Like I was all over the place. And I had discovered melatonin at that point, and melatonin changed my life. And so I said no to it, and then Jared Padalecki called me. He plays Sam, and I'd known him for years and years. And like, they wrote this for you. Come and do. It's kind of ungrateful of you. And I'm like, that is kind of ungrateful of me. And so I went and did one episode and loved it. The character caught. Also on Fridays, they have the best sandwiches in the whole world. This lady comes in with these sandwiches that are like, I've never tried crack, but it reminds me of what people who do crack, how they must feel about crack. They're so good. I'm still thinking about those sandwiches, and the show's been up every 2 years now. But I loved it, and I loved the crew, and then I did. And after one episode, the character became super popular. That sock puppet, Mr. Fizzles. He lives on my nightstand. I'll tell you a story about Mr. Fizzles in just a second. It's about condoms. Can I say that story? It's not a graphic story. Okay, so what are we talking about? I got condoms in my mind now. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Supernatural. So I did my first convention right after that in Birmingham, England, and expected nobody to know my work. I know what it was like for people to know my face and to know a little bit of fame, but cult fame, like Supernatural, is a whole nother level. People every day of my life call me Garth. No matter what I'm doing, when I get a new project, Garth got a new movie. It's a whole different level. So, Mr. Fizzles. So the voice I used to voice Mr. Fizzles was, I had this chihuahua that was born with too much water in his brain. He could only walk in a circle. They told me he would die by 2. Like, this dog pissed on my belongings for 10 years. It was like having a giant hamster, but I loved him. So he died right after I filmed that. And so Supernatural is notoriously stingy. They won't let you have props. Take your props home. They sent me Mr. Fizzles the day before Christmas. And broke down crying. So Mr. Fizzles lives in my nightstand. Well, my buddy was renting a room for me in front of my house and wanted to know, he had a friend over and wanted to know if I had any condoms. And I was like, yeah, they're in my nightstand. And he comes out with Mr. Fizzles, the sock puppet, which is in my right next to my bed. He's like, what's going on with this? I was like, it's not what you think. I'm not that imaginative. No.
So when I hear you have the person, I always think this the new guy.
Oh yeah, I shot that here in Austin.
Nice. I know it's a great underrated movie. I got asked, what's your favorite part of that film? And we were talking about props. You get to keep anything great and bad hands. Can we please have a broke dick chat with Joe?
Dude, you know what? I'm surprised broke dick never caught on. I thought more people would be calling me that. Gladly it didn't. I stole a bag of blue meth from Breaking Bad. Blue meth was all over the place, and my character had a bag in his pocket, so I just kept it in my pocket at the end of the day. Dude, I steal anything that's not nailed down. I always take my wardrobe, but also props. Whenever a character raps out, and I know that we're not going to reshoot it, you guys, I always take things. And so I have something from everything I've ever done. But the best thing about shooting the new guy, first of all, it's my first lead in film. And I did the new guy because my sister was 12 when Road Trip came out and she couldn't watch it. And I was bullied in high school and I wanted to make there's a movie called Can't Buy Me Love. Have you ever seen this? It's Patrick Dempsey. He's bullied, he becomes the cool guy. So this was sort of a takeoff of that. And every time Can't Buy Me Love was on like TBS or whatever, those cable channels, I would watch it growing up. And as an adult, I wanted to make a movie like that. And the new guy is sort of my take on that. And it's sort of become the generation after me, younger kids, this become their Can't Buy Me Love. So many people have seen this movie. It was the #1 movie in Mexico for like 16 weeks. It's weird what hits what demographic. But it's, dude, I'm so famous in Mexico because of that. I love it. Yes, to answer your question, so that's the thing. I will talk and say whatever I want, answer 30% of your question, and not remember what we're talking about. Did I answer your question? Oh yeah. Oh, being in Austin. That was my favorite. I lived in Austin for a year. I shot back then when we shot on film. We shot like 2 pages a day. Now we shoot like 12 to 15 pages a day because it's digital is very easy to light. But a scene on film takes every scene takes 3 hours to set up the lights. It was awesome. You didn't have to know your lines. You weren't hungover. It was great. Now you have to know what you're saying the next day. It sucks. But I got to, I moved to Austin. So Colin Farrell was shooting American Outlaws when I was shooting The New Guy. And we were living in the Omni Hotel in downtown Austin. And just below the penthouse level, there are these one-bedroom apartments. So Colin lived here, and I lived here. And every day after work, our cast would meet up. Our cast was Zoe Deschanel and like Sonny Mayberry, Eliza, and we would all meet at the hotel bar. And it was his cast was Colin and Ali Larder, and I can't remember who else was there. And we would also meet up, drink, and talk about our day. Then Colin realizes there's a 3-bedroom penthouse that's what my people are paying for my 1-bedroom when his people are paying for his. And we moved in together for like the back half of filming, which is also one of the best and worst things that ever happened to me. I did things. It was a great time. But anyways, during that time was when Jenna Bush was in at UT and was getting arrested going into Chewy's and all these other places. We hung out with her. It was crazy. It was so fun. And years later, I was at Carmen Electra's dance party at MTV Cancun Spring Break. And it was me and Paul Walker were there. And some Secret Service guys took us to, like, Jenna Bush there, she wants to talk to you. We went to a VIP session and Jenna Bush was there smoking pot with Ja Rule.
There's a lot going on right now.
I will tell anything on anybody. Also, I'll tell anything on me too. But then years later, I met her in New York and she introduced herself to me like we never met. Because she's pretty much.
You just roll with it?
Well, I'm not going to blow up anybody's spot except unless on my Comic Cons. But I've never talked about this like in a public forum. I've not like done this on the Tonight Show. I would never do that. But she changed her image and she's the former president's daughter. So she doesn't want to admit that she did all this crazy shit. She was fun. She was so fun and a little scary.
That's the memory you want.
Yeah, she reminded me of Travis. You know Travis Fimmel, who's on Vikings. Is his name Travis Fimmel? Yeah, Travis. I think he's Australian. A night with him is the best and worst thing you ever did. He's so scary to hang out with. She was like that back then. You never knew what she was going to do. She was awesome. Hi, Jenna Bush. This is being recorded.
Allegedly. All this is allegedly.
I don't know what really happened. I'll stand back.
My favorite word is like,
I've got photos to back anything up that I say.
Who gets to follow that question?
The book's going to be great.
Back in the back.
On the topic of movie souvenirs,
Yeah.
keep the leopard pin.
I have those. I have the leopard paintings. There's 2 pairs of them. One's in the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas, and I have the other one.
The originals.
Yeah, I have the original. And I'm in a lawsuit right now with Planet Hollywood in Orlando to get my T-shirt back. Like the lawsuit's ongoing right now. Because my contract said I could keep it, and it was missing, and then wound up, DreamWorks sold it to them. And I'm getting it back.
See, that's great when you can keep stuff like that.
Well, they're my memories. And think about it. So somebody recently put together a supernatural, stills from different episodes I was in, and I realized something. People are responding to the work. These are memories of my life. Like, I remember what we ate that day, and on the other side of the camera, there's like 150 people doing various jobs, and that's the thing that you guys don't see. And so the products are what they are, and when they turn out great, I'm stoked. But you don't edit it, you don't write it, you don't color correct it. You're just there on the day. So to have your self-worth or sense of self wrapped up in how well they turn out, it would make you crazy. But everything I've done, I spent part of my life doing that. And so when I see these things, I was like, oh, I remember that. I remember what happened that day. I remember these people. And that's the beauty about doing this long term. And the other thing is that you can actually see what you look like. Like you're constantly being photographed in motion. It's horrifying a little bit, but when it was 20 years ago and it's not so immediate, you go, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember, when I didn't have a butt like Play-Doh and a stomach that has got some, like, I'm telling you, I'm falling apart. The pandemic, I sat home and ate hot Cheetos and drank rum every day for 3 months. It was the best months of my life, but I've got this and I cannot get rid of it. I can't. Because when I start exercising, I lose weight in my face, so I look like I'm dying. So one time I did this thing on Conan where I was going to do a weight gaining, muscle building thing. So we paid for a trainer. They filmed it. So we paid for a trainer and nutritionist for 8 weeks. And I went on the show and I had lost 6 pounds. Yeah, I cannot. I feel like the little girl in Interview with a Vampire, and she cuts her hair off and the camera turns back to her, it's the same length. Like, my body won't change except it's growing a donut right around the middle of it. It's ridiculous. I'm skinny and fat now. I don't know why I'm talking about this. Clearly it's on my mind. Oh, I saw myself naked in the mirror this morning. That's why I still have my mind.
What is your go-to when you need something to watch? What is your go-to?
I like competition shows because, like, I see acting. I really do. And the thing, I mean, movies aren't right for me. Sometimes I can lose myself in it, but I do know a lot of actors. But I like Amazing Race, and I like Survivor. I like them because of the quiz show law, things that have money cannot be altered that much. Like, they have to, I mean, they can't be overproduced.
I'm kind of addicted to Holy Moly right now, the mini golf one.
I don't know that. Oh, do you know what I love? I love, there's a pottery show called The Great Pottery Throwdown, so much so that I've enrolled in pottery classes at UCLA in the fall. So the next time you see me at a convention, I'm probably going to gift you with a handprint ashtray or a messed up mug. Like, I want to get good at making pottery. I love that kind of stuff. Because the thing is, like, anything that's not mean-spirited, like a lot of reality shows or like, scripted shows, or like when American Idol started showing auditions and realized that people love laughing at people, I can't watch it anymore.
That's when I stopped.
I hate cruelty so much. It makes me cry. Like I got called for jury duty like 3 years in a row and then made like the final like 42 or whatever they do, and they start interviewing you all. And I was like, they're like, is there any reason why you can't do this? I'm like, if there's something violent or mean, I'll probably cry in open court. They're like, you're dismissed. That's who I am. So I don't want that to be my entertainment either. I really do not like cruelty or meanness. I don't have it in me. And also violence, even cartoon violence. Like, I went to the premiere of Sin City and had to leave it.
Oh, wow.
Like, the crunching of bones and noses, can't do it. I got offered a guest spot in ER and couldn't do it. I can't see medical stuff. I hate it. Tubes and all that stuff. Maybe that's probably part of the
I think you have time for one more question. Up here in front.
You mentioned like your array of roles over the years. I'm curious, what role do people stop you for in the street and say, I recognize you? And then what's the most random place you've gotten recognized, whether it's like DMV or vacation or something like that?
Oh, so the most random place I ever got recognized, I was on a trip to the south of Spain, and my buddy, there's a little party island called Ibiza that we went to, and nobody's there in December. Like, there were like 12 people literally there. I am at a pizza place, one of 3 restaurants that are open, I think, on the whole island, like on the south side of the island, and I'm there eating pizza, and the Simple Plan video comes on the television, and the guy behind the counter was like, I knew it! I knew it was you! It was the most random thing. I was like, yeah, it's me. So like the other 11 people he called that all came to the pizza place. It was pretty random and pretty great, actually. It was a great night. And my favorite role, it's so hard. Legit was great. Breaking Bad. I'd never seen Breaking Bad before I did it. And they sent it to me, and the script is like poetry. And I went and loved it so much. They offered for me to come back, and I said no. Because once you see too far behind the curtain, you can't watch things anymore. And the third to last hour of that show is still the best episode of TV I've ever seen. It's when she's on the phone and he starts going off on her and you don't know, and you realize after the fact that you think he's really going off on her, but he knows he's being listened to. And he just says the meanest stuff to her, and you're like gasping for air. It's so well written. Oh, and also the Red Wedding. So I watched Game of Thrones. I waited until a month before it was over, and I finished it all. And I live tweeted watching it without spoilers, and I would be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, like on Twitter, people like that Red Wedding, like so crazy. We loved it. The first 3 episodes, I tried to watch it. I was shooting Creepshow in Atlanta, and then HBO Go on my TV, so I'm watching it. And Ty Olson, who plays Benny the Vampire on Supernatural, is my best friend. And so 3 episodes in, I called him, I'm like, I don't get this. I was like, unless people start getting naked here pretty soon. Like, I thought it was nerd porn. I thought people watched it to see people being naked in like pre-Middle Ages time. He's like, stick with it. The 4th episode, I was like, I'm never going to sleep. I gotta work tomorrow and I can't stop watching this. I think I watched 3 episodes and probably went to bed like 5:30 in the morning for an 8 o'clock call. I loved it. So, Game of Thrones, I don't know what we're talking about. I'm such a fan of that kind of different worlds. I love that kind of stuff. It was so beautifully done. But that said, I probably wouldn't want to be on one because you know those costumes are itchy as hell.
Well, you also did the whole story from the man in the high castle.
Yeah. Period pants. Enough said.
All right. It's going to be your least rest today.
Yeah. Come by, say hey. I don't know where I am. Am I over there?
You're right around the corner.
Around the
Go out here, take a
corner.
ride, and you're going to run right into his booth.
Yeah.
DJ Qualls, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Greater Austin Comic Con, more stuff coming up. Cosplay contest later today as well. Go enjoy the show, y'all.